Hello, everyone. In line with today's theme, moving abroad with your pet, I thought I'd introduce you to Prince. He's a Shiba. He's not really in the mood for me today because we just took a bath and he doesn't necessarily like bathing. He just plays dead in the bath, so it makes it difficult for me to move him, but he's not pleased. So he's not going to be the most courteous and say hi to the camera. Well, maybe he will. Say hi, everyone. I don't know what he's looking at. Hi, everyone. He knows I want him to do this. So Shivas are known for being a little stubborn. He never barks. I had him for a few weeks and I never heard him bark until one day. And I was like, well, maybe he doesn't have the vocal cords to bark, but he actually howls and barks like a regular dog, but it's so rare. So if you are in the market for a dog and you don't want a dog that's too rambunctious, the Shiva is a way to go. It's quite surprising how quiet he is and how well mannered. Very, very easy dog to take care of. But in today's video, we are going to discuss moving abroad with your pets, the legal implications, what you need to know, and the common pitfalls that Americans make regarding their pets. So when you move abroad from the United States to any country, but we'll use Spain for this video, for purposes of this video. When you move abroad with a pet, you are not simply booking transportation, you're completing a regulated international animal import process. Your pet is treated under biosecurity laws designed to prevent the spread of diseases, especially rabies. So even small mistakes in documentation, vaccination, timing, or identification can result in denied entry, quarantine, or return to the US. So how the regulation of pets work, we're going to look specifically at the European Union. If there's anyone out there interested in moving to a country in the European Union, particularly Spain, this video may be of interest to you. So the European Union regulates pet imports under a regulation, number 576-2013. This law standardizes requirements for dogs, cats, and ferrets entering from non-EU countries like the US. The purpose of these rules is public health protection, especially preventing rabies transmission. Because of this, EU authorities prioritize verification of identification, vaccination history, and official veterinary documentation. But one advantage for travelers is that these core rules are uniform across the EU. This means the same fundamentals requirements apply whether you enter Spain, France, Germany, or Italy. However, each country may have minor administrative differences, such as which airports are authorized to process pets imported, or whether advance arrival notice is required. But again, the primary goals of this regulation is to prevent the spread of diseases, making sure animals are traceable, protecting the public, and preventing the spread of rabies. All EU countries follow uniform core requirements: the ISO standard microchip, valid rabies vaccination, EU health certificate, and government inspection at entry. However, each country may vary slightly in the authorized airports, administrative procedures, and post-arrival registration rules. So the most important rule you're going to need to know if you're entering the EU from the US is that your pet legally enters the EU at the first country where your flight lands. Even if you only connect there, that country processes the import inspection. So example, if you're flying from the US to Paris, but your ultimate destination is Madrid, Paris, France handles the inspection and entry clearance. After clearing entry in that connecting country, your pet can freely travel within the EU. Now, in terms of the microchip identification, pets must have an ISO-compliant 15-digit microchip that can be scanned internationally. This chip permanently links your pet to the medical records and legal documentation. The most critical rule is that the microchip must be implanted before the rabies vaccination. If vaccination happens first, it becomes invalid under EU law. The rabies vaccination is the most important health requirement. It requires that it be administered after the microchip is implanted, must be given at least 21 days before travel and must be valid at entry. And documentation must match the microchip number. So rabies compliance is strictly enforced under the EU as it prioritizes disease control. Now, within 10 days of travel, a USDA accredited veterinarian must examine the pet and issue an official EU health certificate. The certificate confirms the pet identity, vaccination compliance, and clinical health status. The certificate must be endorsed by a USDA to be legally valid internationally. Entry inspection is handled by government officials, not local vets. You don't have to make a special appointment to see the vet. That will be handled in the airport by the airport vet who will verify the pet's credentials upon arrival. And if everything is good, your pet will be cleared to enter the country and you walk away with your pet. No extra vet visits are required unless there's some small exceptions. There's some where a vet visit may be required. If your pet becomes ill in transport, the paperwork had minor issues requiring follow up, or you want to register your pet locally in Spain, for example. Some countries limit which airports can accept pets and verify the credentials. So, for example, Spain allows Madrid, Barcelona, Valencia, but there are some smaller airports that do not process animals. So if you have a stopover into a smaller airport, you want to make sure that your pet can be accredited in and verified in that airport. So when you're booking your flight and you're traveling with the pet, you want to make sure that there is an accreditation process in that airport. Another thing is that there's a notification requirement. Some countries require pre-arrival notice. Spain usually does not require this for pets from the US, but some EU countries do. So you want to check ahead of time if that's a requirement. Another requirement may be that some countries require registering pets locally once you live there. This is not an import related rule, it's a residency compliance. So you want to make sure that you're aware of that. There are additional extra rules for certain species. Some EU countries require additional paperwork for exotic pets. Dogs entering Ireland, Malta, Finland, and Norway require tapeworm treatment. Spain does not. But the overall most important concept is the first EU entry country rule. This is a major point many people miss. So you must comply with the rules of the first EU country you land in, not your final destination. So again, our initial example, fly from the US to Paris to Madrid, you must meet France's entry rules because that is where your pet legally enters the EU. After entry and everything is on the up and up, you can then travel freely within the EU. Now, another requirement that you have to be aware of is not just the country where you're landing, but also airlines have their own transport requirements. So airlines impose separate regulations regarding travel crates, the temperature safety restrictions, as well as breed limitations, particularly for dogs who are known as brachycephalic dogs, which are dogs with like a shortened skull and flat faces. They have like a pushed in nose and large round eyes. These are typically pugs, bulldogs, French bulldogs. And so airlines restrict these types of dogs because they have a much higher risk of breathing distress during air travel because there's less airflow even at baseline. There's a higher risk of airway collapse under stress, especially in flight. So even though cargo areas are pressurized and temperature controlled, they still involve temperature changes during loading, loud noises. It's a stressful situation for the dog, the crate confinement, all of that is like a perfect storm to induce stress in these type of animals. And because they are very sensitive to heat and poor ventilation, they can overheat quickly and may struggle to regulate breathing because of the stressful situation. And so historically, short-nosed breeds were overrepresented in in-flight pet deaths in cargo transport. And because of that risk, many airlines now ban them from cargo entirely, only allow them in cabin if they're small enough, or refuse transport altogether. The policy is primarily about liability and animal welfare. So if you have one of these types of dogs, a pug, a French bulldog, regular bulldog, and a Shih Tzu, if you know any more, please let me know in the comments section. Then you want to be mindful that there may be some difficulty in transport. And so with that, even with the correct paperwork for the country that you're entering, the airlines can deny boarding for safety reasons. So if you have one of these pets, you do want to be conscientious that this may be a hurdle that you have to get over. Now, again, in terms of arrival in the EU country, at arrival, there's an official veterinarian authority. There is official government veterinary authorities that conduct inspections. Travelers do not need a private veterinarian to do this inspection. So officials will scan the microchip, verify the documents, and confirm vaccination records. And if compliant, pets enter immediately without quarantine. If documentation is incorrect, pets may face quarantine, delayed clearance, or return transport at the cost of the owner. So, in terms of preparation, you want to give yourself 1 to 3 months to plan for your pet to travel with you. Key planning factors: scheduling your veterinary appointments, making sure of the USDA endorsement process in the entry country, as well as the rabies and microchip installation, making sure that is done in the proper sequence, as well as airline booking timelines. So starting late is one of the most common causes of travel delays and hiccups. In terms of costs, typical expenses include the microchip implantation, vaccination, health certificate exams, USDA endorsement fees, and airline cargo charges. So you want to budget for these other issues that come up. The total relocation cost for a pet can range from the hundreds to the thousands. Now, the most common mistakes people make: mistake number one, incorrect order of steps. Getting the rabies vaccination before the implantation of the microchip is one of the most common and costly errors. Another one, starting too late. Many travelers underestimate how long the process takes and cannot complete requirements before their departure date. Submitting a health certificate without official USDA endorsement results in invalid documentation. Another issue is choosing an unapproved entry airport. Not all airports are authorized to process pet imports. Another mistake is ignoring airline rules. Even with correct paperwork for the country you're entering, the airline restrictions can prevent travel. And finally, forgetting the first entry rule. Travelers sometimes prepare for Spain's rules, but overlook requirements of their first EU arrival country. These mistakes often result in denied boarding or entry complication. So, relocating with your pet is not something to take lightly. There's a lot of steps and processes involved regarding veterinary compliance, government documentation, and logistical planning. So, you want to plan ahead long before you book your flight and verify with the EU regarding the requirements. Again, this video is specific to the EU, just to give you a glimpse. A lot of people are moving to Europe or the EU and want to know and want to move with their pets. So I thought I'd do this video to be helpful regarding filling you in on the requirements, that you cannot wait to the last minute to do this. With proper preparation and understanding of requirements, pet owners can ensure a smooth and safe relocation experience. Right, Prince? It's like, how dare you put me in your video after you traumatized me with the bath, right? So everyone, hopefully this video is useful to you. If you know anyone who's traveling with pets and wants to relocate with pets, please share this video with them. Let me know if you have any comments. Let me know if you relocated with a pet. How was the situation, particularly if you relocated to the EU? What were the requirements? What did you have to go through? Was there any pitfalls? Please share in the comment section, and I will see you next time. And Prince will see you next time too. Say bye, Prince. He's done with me.